Now we turn to the United States. Thousands of demonstrators have marched across the country to protest against the increasing state restrictions on abortion. A series of 660 demonstrations were held in New York, Houston, and outside the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. Last month, a new Texas law banned abortions after about 6 weeks of pregnancy. Experts say that's before most women are aware of their pregnancy and earlier than most abortions. The law makes no exceptions for rape or incest. It relies on ordinary citizens for enforcement. There's a reward of $10,000 for successfully suing anyone who helps provide an illegal abortion. Toby Muse has more.
We're here in downtown Washington, D.C. for the Women's March 2021. It's also being called a rally for abortion justice. Now, the tens of thousands of people who have come out are here to show their support for the continued access to safe and legal abortion.
The goal for today is to get across the top line message of abortion justice cannot wait. And there's a lot of things happening in the courts and in legislation, and now there's a lot happening in the streets for women and allies to have an opportunity to make their voices heard on this topic.
In different events across the United States on Saturday, it's expected around 100,000 people could end up participating. Washington, D.C.'s march begins in Freedom Plaza, ending in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. Marchers want to show their support for continued access to abortion, given that the court could soon touch on a case related to abortion rights. Still, the number of protesters seen on Saturday was a far cry from what was seen back in 2017, when hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people came to Washington, D.C. to protest the election of then-President Donald Trump. Activists said Trump had shown a history of misogyny and abusive behavior towards women, something the former president has consistently denied. The Women's March organization was further boosted by the explosion of the Me Too scandal, when it was revealed men in powerful positions in different industries were using their power to abuse women. As the Women's March organization grew in power, so did the problems within the organization. There were accusations of anti-Semitism and bickering amongst the leadership. Over time, the organization lost momentum and popularity. Saturday's march was in part organized in protest to what's been happening in the state of Texas, where laws passed there make it much more difficult for women to get an abortion. Activists here say that they fear that what happened in Texas could spread across the country, putting in danger a woman's access to safe and legal abortions. Toby Muse reporting for CGTN, Washington.
In Miami, protesters are also participating in a march for women's reproductive rights. Nita Soledad Perez reports.
Dozens of women gathered at this park in South Florida to protest what they call our government efforts to control their reproduction rights. Similar rallies took place around the nation this Saturday, denouncing a very restrictive Texas law that limits abortions to 6 weeks. Now, the problem is that Florida state lawmakers are floating a very similar proposal here. That's why demonstrators came to this park to fight for what they say is reproductive justice. Let's take a listen.
Access to safe and legal abortion is a fundamental right that women in this country have had and should have. If there is one barrier that puts us at a disadvantage in our society, it's our disproportionate responsibility that we bear for raising families and for bearing children.
Of course, when I first heard about this march, I was very excited because of what happened in Texas with the abortion ban after 6 weeks. Personally, I felt that my own rights were being violated at that point. I have my rights as like a person in the future, not a person now. I'm 17 years old, so I am kind of like the face of change in a way, because we are the new generation, so we need to make sure that our rights are heard, understood, and we need to make sure that like the people in power that can actually make change listen to us, the people.
A Florida Republican state legislator introduced a similar bill that also limits abortions to 6 weeks, allows the public to sue any individual that assists in carrying an abortion after that 6-week term, and also imposes a $10,000 fine per abortion to any physician that carries out the procedure later in pregnancy. Now, the Florida bill does make exceptions for rape, incest, and medical emergencies that threaten the life of the women. Now, the measure is drawing comparisons, as I said, to the restrictive abortion law that passed in Texas. And that's why so many women here in Florida fear that similar restrictions will be enacted here very soon. Nitza Soledad Perez, CGTN, Miami.
Earlier, we talked to Yvonne Su. She's with the National Asian Pacific American Women's Forum. She talked about what could be the scariest part of the Texas abortion law.
The scariest thing is that any private citizen can file a lawsuit against anybody who assists a person in seeking an abortion. This could be a friend, a provider, a nurse, a friend who's driving the person to get an abortion could potentially be sued. And the person suing can be anybody. It could be you, it could be me, it could be anyone who has absolutely nothing to do with the situation and the person seeking care. This case is really unprecedented in that it empowers ordinary citizens and charges them with really policing women and what women can do and women who are seeking abortion care.
Thousands